Hey YouTube, what's up? Scarecrow here, and I'm today going to do a deck profile on my premium format Victor deck, Nova Grapplers. So, yeah, I actually played this deck. The only regional I actually managed to get to so far this year was Atlanta, and I'd probably was gonna play. I ended up playing this deck. I was gonna probably play Grand Blue or Shadows most likely, and but I made some friends of mine. They didn't really know Premium, so I taught them like the meta kinda, and they were more familiar with like the Shadow Paladin and Grand Blue decks. So I let them borrow that and was like, I don't care that much. I'll just play this deck. Um, I finished 6 wins and 2 losses, so I didn't top. I was like a win away, I guess, but I did pretty good. Um, like okay, I guess. Like it's not really great, nothing to be really proud of, but I did pretty okay. That's like 75% win rate. But whatever. I figured I would do this because I don't get to do a lot of premium deck profiles. So this is the deck I played that I went 6-2 with, I guess. Starting Vanguard, Kabutron. Sorry for this glare. Kabutron, I went with him as a starter just because he's a guaranteed like restand of a rear guard. And that's pretty good. Just having like a guaranteed like stand effect, an additional attack right off the start of the game. There are other options you could pick from to argue with for like extra draws and stuff, but like this deck isn't really about like the card advantage. This deck is about killing your opponent, and especially in the premium format, you can't really worry too much about like card advantage. Sorry, that's my 2-year-old knocking on my office door. You can't really worry too much about the card advantage in the gameplay. You got to worry about like killing your opponent because I guarantee you your opponent's worrying about killing you. The format is too aggressive to really care too much about that, and especially with this deck's playstyle. So you should really just try to kill your opponent, especially decks like Gize being in the format. Like Gize puts you on a very short like clock. You gotta be able to kill him before they kill you. So having the restand, to me, is far more valuable than countercharging or drawing or whatever. So, under the triggers then. I played 8 fronts, 1 crit, 3 energy girl stands, and then 2 Blauheal and 2 wall boys. So that might look like a very random lineup. So I'm gonna have to go through this. I'll start here with the heals. So I'm playing 2 of each because the Blauheal, to use its skill, do the countercharge soul charge. You can remove any heal, so even if you're using up like a wall boy to do it, that still works. So I went with 2 of them and 2 because I didn't want to play all 4 of these because I didn't want to run like too many triggers that are just +5s. I really don't like giving up the +10 power of V series. Sorry, as again, as I said, my 2-year-old. I film these when I can, so we're just gonna deal with it. But yeah, playing both let me keep like some more power triggers, and still let me have access to using this card's skill, and it worked fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. Don't feel like that needs to change. I would probably do this trigger line for the heals again. Then there's the Energy Girls. So, again, as I said, I don't want to play too many triggers that only give +5s. And running 3 of her was perfectly fine for me. I didn't feel like I needed a 4th. It was running good. I still saw her just enough as I would like to see her. And she's a really good skill. She has a fantastic skill. Boosting something, shuffling her back in the deck and restanding it. Just gives you another attack. Very good. And if you're going to play triggers, but you want to have an effect, so... actually, probably the worst side of this card is the fact it's actually a stand trigger. There is a risk that you could get these on your favorite champ turn, and it could mess up your ability to restand. So when you're playing the deck, you should play that accordingly. Try to make sure that if you drive check one of these, it's not going to ruin your turn. You're very not likely that you're going to get more than one, but just play carefully. Expect that you might get one. But yeah, this card's crazy. Because of cards like this, it's not unrealistic for this deck to do like 16 attacks in a turn. So, then there's the 8 fronts. Front triggers are, in my opinion, like the most threatening trigger this deck can have, in the sense like there's also the 1 crit. So I valued the fronts more than the crits, because when you get a front trigger, power up your whole front row, and then those multiples of those cards are restanding, doing attacks. Like, the extra power is getting like a lot of value since you're using it multiple times. This deck shoots your opponent to like 5 damage very fast, in which case the fronts are putting in more work than the crits. So yeah, the reason there is 1 crit in here is I just didn't want to play a different, like, I wanted to play another V series trigger, and I want it to be a 15k aggressive style. I could have played like a V series draw, but I didn't want to have like the 5k shield. I wanted to have like another 15k shield, and I want it to be aggressive. So I don't ever really bank on actually getting this. If I get it and it works out for the turn, that's great. Like, if I actually do get lucky and hit this and can put it on someone who's going to attack multiple times, like, having a restanding crit is pretty good, I hear. But mostly it's just because, as I said, it's an aggressive style, 15k shield, 10 power. But yeah, the front triggers are like really good. Like, I can't think of like any game where I got a front trigger that on like a stride turn where I didn't win that game. Like, if I stride and I hit a front trigger, I would say my odds of winning that game are like plus 90%. Yeah, like, even if I don't kill them the turn that I got a front trigger, I'm probably going to inflict so much heavy like damage on them for my multiple attacks that like they're going to like shoot up in damage and burn a ton of their hand trying to survive, and then I can easily just fend them off on my turn and kill them on my next turn. So like, I really think fronts are the best way to go about this, and I maxed them out because I want to be able to actually hit them. So that's it for the zeros. For the grade 1s, 4 stride fodder, because it's stride fodder and it lets us search out like Zubat, Battler, Victor, which is the main boss of the deck. Then we got 4 Baryon. This perfect guard is so good. Being able to perfect guard and draw is like amazing, especially in a deck like this where you need to have enough cards left on your turn to throw down and kill the opponent. So that's why I maxed it out. I valued it more than playing like draw trigger perfect guards, because this card replaces the cost, and yeah. Then my daughter is making so much noise in the background. Then we got our Hawk. So this card is super nifty. You boost with it, and then restand the card you boosted and draw a card. You give it a tiny boost. Only playing 3 of it because as good as it is, I need room for other things that I put value into, and it's a good card. I don't think anyone can disagree with boost, restand, draw. That's really good and gives you soul. And my last grade 1 spot, I'm playing 2 Guns Done. I think that's how you say his dude's name. So he has the skill where you can rest him, give you guys resist. Sometimes it's helpful, not that much in the meta right now, but it could be. But mostly, I'm running this guy because when he restands, he gets really big. Powers up for every card that's in the G zone. So he becomes a really big guy. You can use him for even attacking, let alone boosting. And I felt it was unnecessary to run him because of how prominent like Gize is in the meta. You have to be able to hit over that 30k wall. So having a card like him who can get really big, where he's going to be the attacker or the booster, that's why I decided to run him. You need to be able to hit that 30k wall. If Gize is like a good way to describe it, like the gatekeeper of the format. If your deck can't handle Gize, then your deck's not going to be able to perform in the premium format. Because you will, if you go to big events, you are going to see Gizes. You might not play against them, but you're going to see them there. And the odds of you playing against them are actually pretty good if you plan on doing well. So you gotta be ready to play against that deck. In the grade 2 lineup, for Gosachi, I don't think there's anything to complain about this card. When you're on Victor, he's got resist, he restands cards, and he restands himself as a 16. Like, this card is just really good. Then we got 3 of our Ninjad. This card's also really good. Restands things and buffs himself and the other card. You don't even need to put like a booster behind him. You can just like swing with him and use his own effect to make sure you're hitting like the good number to swing over their Vanguard and buffing the other card. I'm not playing any more than 3 because between all the effects in the deck that can restand, like him and the Gosachi, I didn't want to play too many cards that restand. I felt like I would be missing out on something to that and needed to make room for other stuff. And then last of the grade 2s is 4 Magical Performer, because she restands and is really big, and then you swing with her multiple times after she's really big. And she, like, this card's just great. The fact that she has no cost becomes huge, and you just pound your opponent with her multiple times in a turn. Really good. The only complaint I think I could probably have about this grade 2 lineup is it doesn't really have a great early game. Like, I could maybe early game if I ride Victor, call Gosachi, and be able to do another attack with him, but that's also not that great either, so it's like whatever. Yeah, there's other things you can do that I'll talk about in a minute. So into the grade 3s, we got our 4 Zubat Battler, our main grade 3 boss of the deck. He gives you an additional attack and recoups resources at the end phase, letting you soul charge, counter charge, and draw. This card is just really, really good. Then we ran 2 more Victors, Extreme Battler. He's better than Excessive Battler. Excessive Battler because of the Soul Blast and some other things. Just overall, Extreme Battler is just better. He's not nearly as good as Zubat, but for Counter Blast, you get another restand and give it +5. So I don't think like his JB2 is ever really going to come up. It could, but usually doesn't. But the reason I'm running 6 Victors is you're probably, if you're not on a Victor, you're probably not going to be able to kill your opponent. You really do need to be on a Victor to put in enough pressure to kill them. It's mostly just getting to the Zubat so you can recoup your resources. But the next best thing is to be on a Victor. so you can get that extra attack off from the on-stride effect. And being on a Victor, letting you utilize your cards like your perfect guard being able to do the draw effect. And then the last grade 3 is 3 Assure Kaiser. So some people would argue playing like different ones. The reason I'm playing Assure Kaiser, so I guess there's a little bit. If I get the opportunity to, like, my hand is good enough where I know I can ride Assure Kaiser first, get the Excel Circle, then I can later on ride to a Victor and go for a better push, especially if I had to do something like go first. If I do draw one of the 3 Victors, I would like to ride the Assure Kaiser. Ride the Assure Kaiser first. If I have to go first, riding him gives me the Excel Circle. I can just throw it in a grade 2. It means my opponent's at grade 2, so they're probably like a 9K. I can swing for 19, swing with Ashura, have pretty good odds of being able to restand that rear guard and do a second swing. So by running him, if I do draw him when I'm going first and riding him to get that Excel Circle, it can be pretty good because I'm going to get that extra attack in to put a little bit of pressure while the opponent's at grade 2, and then later I can just re-ride, and now I have the Excel Circle to use when I'm on Victor and just do so much more. Yeah, like the downside of him though, I should also mention having the 12k power is kind of helpful. Your opponent has to play a little bit differently to make sure they're hitting you well. But that said, usually, depending on how it goes, I'd rather just ride to a Victor, but just to be safer, that's why I'm riding more. If the situation works out well enough though, and I do happen to draw the one of the 3, it is good to ride it. Most games you don't need it, but if it works out, you can, and that's why I ran them, and it worked well for me. Some people will play a different grade 3, like Battle Door, since it will still give you Excel and it will be a good rear guard because it can be a 17. That is pretty good, but I went with Assure Kaiser just for like the ability that if I have to go first, I can ride him, have an Excel Circle, and probably restand it just to have a little more aggression. So yeah, most of the time I won't need the grade 3 on the rear guard. It does come up, in which case obviously the Battle Door is better. But I like my decks to mostly be focused on like having a grade 3 that will be good on the Vanguard Circle. So that's why I went with that. That covers the main deck. So under the G zone, first we got our 2 winning champs. This card is really good. Like 90% of the time, this card is your first stride. He just flips over so many cards, powers up your rear guards. He's such a really good setup card, and for like a card that just like generates card advantage and sets you up for your turns later on, like this card is still like really scary. It's not like hard to believe, like this card kills people first stride plenty of enough times by himself, or it just puts them in a bad shape while getting you some card advantage and setting you up for the next turn. There's a lot of times where you're going to stride, and that's where we're playing 2, where just you don't really have anything better to do. You could just stride him, swing, pop a card, and draw. This is a really good card. Next, we got our favorite champ, the main win condition of the deck. We only run 1 because usually it's you go into this card, you win the game. If you for some reason didn't win the game after you went into this, you're probably losing the game. So we don't really, and if you do go into this, fail to kill them, and then they somehow fail to kill you, I guarantee you're not going to be in a good enough shape where you're going to want to go into them again. So running just the 1 is perfectly fine. Your opponent's probably not going to live. I don't think anyone lived like all day that I went into this card. If this card hit the board, I won the game. Usually the 2 games I did lose, I died because I didn't get a chance to actually use the card. And that means I died before my second stride. Speaking of which, both my losses were to the same deck, to Anj, which there's nothing I can do about it. They had this Riviere Superior Ride on their second turn. I didn't give them any counterblast to search for it. They just happened to draw it, and there's nothing I can do about it. Next, 2 Meteor Kaiser Victor. I might have used this card once. You don't really use this card very much. He's there because he gets you like an extra attack and has an on hit for no cost. That's why he's there. You don't really use this card, but there are some rare setups where you do need to use him because he doesn't have a counterblast. So that's why he's there. Then 3 Victoplasma. I'd never use this card either. It's just there for rare situations, but I don't ever really use this card. I'm running 3 of it for the really rare situation where I want to first stride him and use his skill. But as I said, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to realistically use this card almost ever. But you have the room in the deck because most of the only cards that matter are winning champ and favorite champ. So you might as well give yourself these super niche situation cards for just in case they come up. Then we got our GB8 Driger. This card is amazing. If you can like get up to GB8 by second stride, which isn't unreasonable, it doesn't happen that often, but you can do it. This card is the better option to go because you're not putting such a drain on yourself. You're just doing pure hardcore aggro on your opponent. Your opponent probably won't live if you bring this card. Same thing as Victor. Yeah. Then we got our Seabreeze, because you should still be playing Seabreeze in Premium. If you're not, like, you should learn how to actually play this card. The point of this card isn't the fact that your opponent can grade 2 stall you. The point of this card is because it exists, you can force your opponent to play the way you want played. And you should really learn how to use it. Like, this card is like required pretty much. Then our last stride unit is our Stark. I never used this card, but that doesn't mean it's a bad card. You should still play it, because in super desperate situations, you can top deck mode, but you can ultimate stride. You should probably go for this. Especially like if you swing with this guy and get like a front trigger on the first swing, then he's like a 46 for 3 times. Then for our G Guardians, we got our 3 Dogging Titan, whatever this thing's name is. He's our Soul Charger. He's actually like the main G Guard of the deck. He's a 25k shield, and he countercharges. He's the card we're going to be flipping over with our favorite champ a lot, and then using him to countercharge. He's the reason the deck has no countercharge issues. He'll him and top of Victor and stuff, but 3 is fine. You could do 2. I wouldn't. I like having the 3rd. It comes up a lot that I want to have a 3rd one to flip. So then we've got our 1 Yunyar. We like never use this card, but in theory we could, and in that case this card would be great. And then last is our 1 Gundreed. This card you do use a lot. It's really good. Combos well with the perfect guard. So that is it for the deck profile. Thank you for watching.